The
You have to
hardest
believe me, I didn't mean
apologies
for it
to
to happen
spot
like
are
this.
the ones that sound
It's
soft
always
but
something
feel
with you.
suffocating. You walk away thinking maybe they owned it, yet somehow you still feel managed. That uneasy feeling matters because some apologies are not repair attempts at all. They are access attempts, image management, pressure campaigns wrapped in polite language. And if you keep mistaking control for remorse, you stay emotionally available to harm. So by the end, you'll know exactly what a controlling apology sounds like. More importantly, you'll know what to say when they're sorry is really a leash. Because real apologies bring clarity. The manipulative ones leave you foggy, guilty, and cornered. If you've ever accepted an apology and still felt tense, you were noticing something real. Your body often understands the power play before your mind finishes explaining it. A lot of people learn to ignore that signal because conflict always got flipped. You tried to talk honestly and somehow ended up comforting the person who hurt you. You explained your pain, then apologized for your tone, timing, or reaction. That doesn't happen by accident, controlling dynamics. It happens by design. The apology becomes bait, and your empathy becomes the hook all over again. First, listen for whether the apology names the behavior or just manages your response. A real apology says what they did. A controlling one says whatever comes consequences. "I'm sorry I lied" is different from "I'm sorry you're still upset about it." One faces reality. The other quietly frames your pain as the actual inconvenience. When the sentence avoids the action, it usually protects the actor first. Second, notice the timing. Control apologies often arrive when they're losing access to you. Not when you were bleeding, but when you finally stepped back, stopped explaining, or went quiet. Suddenly, they have insight, because distance hit them harder than your pain ever did. That doesn't automatically mean the apology is fake, but it should make you slower. Remorse can wake up late. Control usually wakes up when consequences finally become personal. Third, watch whether the apology comes with a hidden demand attached immediately. "If I apologized, why are you still talking about it?" Is not repair. That's not accountability. That's pressure dressed up as fairness to you now. They want forgiveness on their schedule because your pain is interrupting their comfort. And when you don't hand it over fast enough, they call you bitter, or dramatic, or cold, or impossible to please. None of that is an apology. It's a punishment for needing longer than they wanted to wait for healing. Fourth, pay attention to whether they apologize privately but keep the same behavior publicly. A toxic boss says sorry in email, then humiliates you in the next meeting. A parent cries about hurting you, then repeats the guilt trip by dinner. A friend swears they didn't mean it, then keeps fishing for private details. A fake friend may apologize, then immediately ask who else you told about it. They're not repairing trust. They're checking the damage and tracking the narrative. Words can be borrowed. Patterns tell the truth. Always watch what survives after the apology. If the behavior stays, the apology was probably serving something other than repair. Then here's what most people miss. Control apologies often center their feelings immediately. They feel terrible. They hate themselves. They're ashamed. They need you to reassure them. Now your job isn't healing from harm. Your job is stabilizing their discomfort about causing it. And the minute you start comforting them, control quietly returns to their hands. That's why some apologies leave you exhausted instead of relieved. You did emotional labor again. Another sign is selective memory. They apologize for the smallest part, not the real wound. They say sorry for raising their voice, not for lying, triangulating, or humiliating you. They say sorry for the misunderstanding, not for the manipulation that created confusion. That matters because language reveals what they're willing to admit and what they're hiding. A controlling apology trims the story until they still look basically innocent. They confess just enough to seem humble, but never enough to lose power. That's not vulnerability, that's strategy wearing a sad face in public today. Another tell is how fast they pivot from apology to explanation mode. They say sorry, then build a courtroom around why you forced them there. They were stressed, they were tired, you misunderstood, you were sensitive, you triggered them. Pay attention when the apology starts sounding like evidence for your guilt. That's the flip. You came for accountability and somehow leave defending your humanity. A real apology may include context, but it never uses context as a weapon. It helps you understand. It doesn't quietly reassign responsibility back onto your chest. Sometimes they'll even say, "I hate conflict," right before recreating the exact same tension. That's because the apology was never meant to change behavior, only reset your resistance. Notice whether they become unusually sweet only when you start pulling your energy back. Kindness that appears on command is often maintenance, not transformation at all. Real change usually looks boring. Repeated change, steady change, unannounced change too. It doesn't need applause, emergency forgiveness, or a speech about how good they are. Manipulative apologies often come with urgency because urgency keeps you from evaluating clearly. When someone says, "Can we just move on?" hear the fear underneath that question. You also need to watch what happens after you don't instantly melt. If their apology is real, your caution may disappoint them, but it won't enrage them. If it's control, your caution feels like disobedience and the mask starts slipping. Suddenly they're cold again, or sarcastic, or wounded, or loudly done with you. That's important, because anger after an apology often means loss of control, not heartbreak. They aren't reacting to your cruelty, they're reacting to reduced access now. The apology failed to reopen the door, so now they kick it. And once you see that, the guilt starts losing its grip on you. Here's a painful example. A parent says, "I'm sorry, but families shouldn't keep score." Sounds peaceful, but hear the message underneath. Stop naming the pattern and resume your role. Or a boss says, "I apologize if that came off harsh. We're all stressed." Translation: I'm smoothing over optics, not taking responsibility for how I treat you. Or an ex says, "I know I hurt you, but I was hurting too." Maybe they were, but pain doesn't erase choices, and shared pain doesn't equal shared blame. Controlling people love emotional blur because blur keeps you negotiating with clear harm. They want the moment to feel complicated enough that you abandon your own conclusions. That's why you leave conversations with them replaying everything like a detective. Healthy people do not need you confused in order to stay connected. They may not enjoy your boundary, but they can survive hearing one. Toxic people treat a boundary like betrayal because it limits convenience, leverage, or access. And that same logic shows up inside the apology every single time. They aren't saying sorry to honor your experience. They're saying sorry to regain position. That difference is everything, because one restores trust and the other reopens extraction. Now here's the nuance a lot of people need. Not every bad apology is malicious. Some people are emotionally immature, ashamed, conflict avoidant, or terrible with accountability still. That still doesn't make their apology safe for you to trust quickly. Intent matters, but impact matters too, especially when the pattern keeps costing you peace. You don't need a diagnosis to protect yourself from confusing, repetitive harm. And you don't need courtroom proof before adjusting your access to them. Strategy matters here, because some situations need distance more than dramatic confrontation. Especially with a toxic boss, controlling parent, or coworker who thrives on scenes. In those cases, clarity beats catharsis, calm beats confession, precision beats emotional spilling. You don't need them to agree with your boundary for the boundary to stand. And you definitely don't need to over-explain why their apology didn't fix it. Over-explaining is often what controlling people are counting on from you anyway. The more you explain, the more material they get to twist later. They don't need the truth. They need openings, loopholes, and emotional handles. So when the apology feels slippery, your first tool is not a better speech. Your first tool is the pause. Let the silence expose what their words were hiding. Don't rush to rescue the moment just because they suddenly sound wounded. Don't soften your no because they added tears, shame, or a fragile voice. Don't explain your boundary into a hostage negotiation. State it, then protect it. You can say, "That doesn't work for me," and stop there today. You can say, "My answer is the same," when they circle back differently. You can say, "I'm not discussing this," when the apology turns into a cross-examination. You can say, "We're not doing this," when they try to restart old confusion. You can say, "I already answered that," when they're using repetition to wear you down. If it's a workplace boundary, say, "I'm available during work hours," then repeat, "Nothing else." If it's family pressure, say, "Not this time," and let the discomfort sit. Short phrases are powerful because they leave less for manipulation to attach itself to. Long explanations feel honest to you but often function like raw material to them. Another nonverbal tool is your tone. Flat, calm, and uninterested changes the whole game. Not icy, not theatrical, just steady enough that their chaos has nowhere to land. Hold eye contact briefly if needed, then let your face stay neutral. That tiny refusal to perform panic takes away more leverage than most arguments ever will. And if they punish you with silence afterward, Don't automatically chase the connection. Silence can be healthy when it's space. It's manipulative when it's meant to train you. If the message is behave better and I'll speak again, that's punishment. And punishment is not repair, no matter how sad the face looks. Here's the deeper truth most people learn too late. A manipulative apology studies you. It learns that you hate tension, fear being unfair, and want to see good. Then it uses those beautiful qualities against you until your empathy becomes self-abandonment. That's why this hurts so much. The thing that makes you loving makes you reachable. But empathy without boundaries is just access for people who refuse responsibility. And forgiveness without evidence is often permission for the cycle to continue. You are not cruel for needing consistency before closeness. You are not bitter for remembering. You are not difficult because someone's apology did not reach the part they damaged. Sometimes the most self-respecting response is not another conversation. It's a changed level of access. Fewer calls, shorter replies, no private details, no emergency availability, no instant emotional labor. Let them call you different. Different is often what healing looks like to controlling people. When they say you changed, sometimes they mean you stopped being easy to use. And when they say your standards are too high, they often mean access got expensive. Real love, real friendship, real respect can survive accountability. Control usually cannot. So the next time someone apologizes, don't just hear the words. Watch the structure. Ask yourself what the apology is asking from you besides understanding today. Is it asking for patience, or is it demanding access without consequences? Is it naming harm, or quietly making your reaction the real problem? Is it followed by changed behavior, or just a countdown until the next violation? Those answers will tell you more than the word sorry ever will. If this hits something real for you, name the phrase you've heard before. And if you need it, practice one clean response before your next conversation. Stay close to what brings clarity, not what keeps you performing confusion. The right apology frees you, the wrong one tries to put you back.